Hey Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful Sunday. This time with a quote by Lao Tse from the Tao Te King, where he states, "Care about other people's approval, and you will be their prisoner." What are your thoughts to share on this topic, man?
Wonderful to be back with you, man. This is an incredible quote from, in my opinion, one of the best little books that's ever been written. So wisdom packed, so dense, and so deeply true in many ways. And this quote points to an ever-present condition of being a human existing within society. And that's that we tend to ruminate, we tend to think of past and future conversations, and we tend to be extremely obsessed and fixated on the opinions of others and others' perceptions of us. This is something that is deeply evolved in our psychology because throughout most of the history of our species, we were in groups and tribes of 50 or 100 or 150 other Homo sapiens trying to survive together. And in that context, when we were hunter-gatherers, we were smaller than a lot of animals that wanted to kill us, and we were not that strong of predators on our own when we were isolated from a group. It's really through collaboration, through mutual guarding, through mutual teaching, through the collective bands of, once again, not thousands, but dozens, or perhaps 100 or 200 other humans, that we were able to secure our survival through many, many, many generations throughout history. And those humans that were ostracized by the group were almost certain to die. When you're a human in a band of 50 people and you have only rocks and wood to secure your survival, you need to make fire, you need to make weapons, you need to protect yourself, all of these things in a hostile natural world before we invented all this shit and hunted wolves and many of the large predators out of existence in many of our biomes. We actually could get eaten by a lot of stuff and killed by a lot of stuff, and we would go through periods of being incredibly weakened, even normally, and couldn't go get food if you have a broken leg, for example. And so being ostracized by the group, being alone as a human in our natural environment was basically akin to a death sentence. And in some hunter-gatherer societies that still exist, people literally die from being ostracized and shunned from the group. They actually die from that directly. And it's a little bit counterintuitive to me, but it feels, even still, because we're still rocking this old hardware that was needed to get us through those eras, it feels terrifying to have the fear of ostracism or being shunned or being shamed by the group that we're in as humans. We are super wired for this because of our evolutionary past, because of how essential it was to connect and fit in and be mutually protected by our tribe when we were surviving for hundreds of thousands of years. And so now we're in a society with 8 billion people and with computers and phones and social media and workplaces and schools and universities and various networks of non-relative connections of people that are not related to us, that we're not romantically involved in. But rather than it just being one group of 50 people, maybe we're in many different groups. Maybe we go to a recreational activity over here. We have our school friends from back in high school, another group from in college, our workplace and the people that we spend a lot of our waking hours around, and then our spiritual community, if we have one of those. And we have a much more broad and diverse web of social connections, which is great in a lot of ways, but it increases the surface area for social rumination, for considering how we're being in this context or another, and for certain strong stimuli of either acceptance and praise that lead to ego and attachments and things like that, or from shaming and ostracism and negativity and all of these things are very, 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 very overstimulating to a brain that's used to being around just the same 50 or 100 people for most of their lives. But we're still rocking that same brain that was responding to the old stimulus level, the old quantity and quality of stimulus on social connection front. And so what this results in for many, if not all of us, is a super hyper aware, dialed up base state of hyper conscientiousness, self consciousness, self concern about the perceptions of others, about what people think of us. And what this results in for many of us as a default state is this sort of walking around in our lives as we're doing other things with our hands, with our eyes, with our senses. We have a monkey mind superimposed over our perceptions, where we're thinking about this conversation that I had earlier today, this conversation that I'll have tomorrow, how I came across in this social environment. Did these people like me? Did these people not like me? What do they think about me? Am I liked? Am I going to be able to have people that I can count on? Do I feel lonely? Do I feel connected? What is this story and narrative I have around my social interactions? And that determines in large part how we feel about ourselves, how we perceive ourselves. And even when things are going really, really, really well, if we go out and we just, let's say we go into a new social environment and we make tons of connections and we feel like we looked really great and we fit totally in and we felt totally ourselves and natural and authentic, it doesn't take that much for us to be galloping along on this horse and have this one interaction that just absolutely trips the horse and kicks us off and sends us careening and painfully landing on the ground. This is a danger where even if we have a lot of strong momentum, it actually doesn't take that much to knock us off and cause us to psychologically suffer and to feel a lot of negative emotion. And this whole web of mental play, this whole story of our interactions with others is immensely, immensely compelling to us and can totally take hold of our perceptions of ourself, of our happiness, of our suffering, and send us down all kinds of places and really distract us because it's a ton of stimulus compared to what we're used to. But our brains are still really wired to respond to these stimuli very strongly because it had such high stakes in most of our evolutionary past. So we're kind of overwired, and our nature in this new society, and it's, in my opinion, increasing year after year after year due to a lot of these social networking and internet stimulus that are turning this up. And how many likes did I get on my latest Instagram post? What do these comments say about what people are thinking about me? Do I look cool? Do I not look cool? Do people want to be around me? Do people want to be my friends? All of these things are so turned up. And what this can amount to in the end is if I'm fixated on what do other people think about me when I'm walking into a room, when I'm walking into a party, when I'm eating dinner with some folks, when I'm going to a new community of one form or another, when I'm going to playing pickup basketball at the park, all these things. If I'm fixated and I really, really, really want to grasp and really want people to see me a certain way and it really matters to me and I can't accept if they don't like me, then at the end of the day, they control how I feel about myself. I am handing them an immense power over my own mind. And we do have an option to do this or not do this, but not doing this takes a great degree or at least a present moment awareness of our true nature, of the real stakes and consequences of this, because unlike our ancestors, where these stimuli really could be life or death, these are not life or death situations for us. A ton of people are going to like us, a ton of people are not going to like us. We have a huge surface area for being liked or not liked by others. And if we get so fixated and attached on the opinion of every last person, that voice of society, that shaming or that fear or that anxiety or that grasping or that craving for people to perceive us in a certain way, that will begin to rule us. And we can look around and see this in tons of people. I personally have a hypothesis that this monkey mind and chatter is a core root problem of many of the addictive tendencies that many people struggle with, especially the depressive addictions, such as alcoholism being the main one, opiates being another one. Many of these things people do, at least frequently, in order to numb this chatter in their mind, in order to escape and silence this chattering story about how they seem to others and these regrets and these wants and these fears and these self-concerns and self-consciousness. It is a total trap and a total nightmare. And it's kind of the default that a lot of these stimuli will push us down if we don't have awareness, if we don't bring ourselves back to something deeper, to something greater, to something that strikes through this and lets us see through it clearly. This is a great temptation that we have due to the novel circumstances of living in 2023. And it's a great opportunity for us as well to be able to transcend and to have clarity on, because if we're fixated on these stories, if we're fixated on the opinions of others, if we're fixated on this social monkey mind, then we're not going to clearly hear our intuition. We're not going to clearly hear our awareness, and we're not going to be able to stick to our values because we're more concerned with the opinions of others than by whether or not we're truly sticking to our deepest core values. If I'm swayed by this really wanting this person to like me, then am I going to tell them the hard truth that needs to be spoken in this, that is true to who I want to be? Am I going to push them? Am I going to enforce a boundary if I'm more concerned with this person liking me? And if this desire to be accepted by others, if this desire to be not hated by others is more important to us on a regular, everyday, psychological, emotional level, even if we don't admit it to ourselves, if we're living like this is the most important thing to us, it will drown out our deepest self. It will drown out any opportunity to be authentic and to actually live from our truest values. And this is a great temptation that many of us struggle with, and myself, of course, being one of them. And it's something that ebbs and flows in our life. It's not something that will eternally conquer and overcome, assuming that we're not moving to a cave to sit in silence for the next decade. We are grappling with this situation. These stimuli are going to keep hitting us, and they will keep being compelling to us. But this is a wave that we can learn to ride. This is a wave that we can gain our balance with and be intentional about navigating according to our awareness, according to our intuition, and according to our deepest self. Although obviously much easier said than done. What are your thoughts about this, man?
Thanks for sharing your valuable thoughts, Peyton. And I love that you dived into the origin of the book. Like it's like a dense and deeply valuable and deeply true-ringing book, which also survived the filter of time, like thousands of years old now, and which already had a grasp on the mechanisms, the underlying mechanisms of society. We are deeply social creatures. Like you said, we evolved in a social setting. We could not survive without the group. A broken leg would be like a death sentence to us. And therefore, as hunters and gatherers, our survival depended on the approval of the group, and most of it not being ostracized and not being expelled of the group, so that we could live on and procreate and so on. So this is deeply rooted in our system. So this is also the challenge. The modern challenges we face are that we have such old hardware, like millions of years of evolution inside our bodies. Old hardware, but we are living in a immensely fast-changing environment now. We are living in a society where the dimensionalities of possible stuff just exploded. And therefore, also our independence towards whether other people approve of us or not also grows. The possibility, if you take your own value system, the possibility of just doing you is much higher than 10,000 years ago. And this is also an opportunity. Every challenge is also an opportunity which can be harnessed. And like you said, it needs the awareness to listen to what is actually right now the story which is in your head. Do you crave the approval of others liking your next social media post? Do you crave it? And therefore, when you crave it, you really realize it and look at the phone and say, oh wait, maybe why did not more people put a like on that? And therefore, you're giving the power of towards your own happiness to other people. And that is simply a mechanism. Like tools can be used for good, to build a house, or for evil, to throw anybody down. You can use this mechanism for yourself, either to free yourself, to commit yourself, or if you are not aware of this mechanism to imprison yourself to the acceptance of others. What do I mean by that? Committing yourself is also valuable if you use tools to commit yourself, like societal commitment, like marriage is a promise, even not to your spouse, but also to everybody else, that you will truly honor these relationships through thick and thin, and therefore have the frame of the possibility to grow into something that can compound over time, some deep relationship which can grow. But also you can have the possibility to commit to something you want to learn, and then you take a teacher on, and then the teacher, you give the teacher the opportunity to approve of what you did or what you said and disapprove of it. But you value that in a much different way because you are aware of this relationship and that it helps you to grow into a direction you want to. So you can also use it as a tool only if you decide for yourself what your values are and what you want to do with your life. And you have this clarity of intention that you can just decide for yourself. This is my value. This is what I want to learn. This is a situation, a commitment I want to make. And therefore, I really value the judgment of the other party so that I can grow for myself. But that, for sure, needs awareness. A big kind of being aware which situation you are getting in and being aware of the underlying mechanism so that you don't let your happiness be held hostage by another party without your approval.
Wonderful points. I love how you allude to the middle way here and the fact that we are deeply social creatures. This is a huge trap that most of us fall into and spend a decent portion of our lives in. But the answer is not to leave all of society and never speak to people again. The answer is not to completely lack any perception or awareness of how other people are interacting with you and to lose all empathy for the feelings of others. These things are not the middle way. There is a balance here. But is this something that is using us, or is this something that we are using? And are we more powerful than this tool, or more powerful than this drive, in which case we can bring awareness to it, transcend it, and manipulate it according to our deepest desires? Or is this co-opting and taking the place of our deepest desires and using us instead of us using it? And lots of the things that we try to do in life do actually require collaboration with other humans. Even maintaining a healthy mental balance requires friendships and relationships and trust and knowing that there's somebody that we can call when we feel lonely. We do experience loneliness when we don't interact with others. And so having friends that are loyal to us, that we value in return and mutually provide value is important. These things are not optional. Yet, if we lose our balance on this and become completely clingy to them and have these relationships driven by fear rather than by love and rather than by awareness, then they will very quickly take control of us and manipulate us and move us around. And the effect of this is a little bit counterintuitive and pernicious in the sense that a lot of times if we go around trying to impress other people, it is one of the easiest things for other people to recognize and to see. And even if they're not being explicitly aware, if you go into a room and you see a guy trying to impress everybody, you can tell if he cares about what other people think about him. You can tell if he's assessing himself through the eyes of others or if he's assessing himself through his own values. And those people who are constantly keeping track of, oh, did this person like that? Did this person not like what I say? Should I say this? Should I say this? Depending on how he expects other people to react to him rather than from a place of authenticity, he is going to be weak. He's going to be perceived as weak, and rightly so. If we are not being in accordance to our true values, but rather just trying to manipulate the perception of others, we are weak, period. We cannot lead well. We cannot inspire well. We cannot truly be charismatic. We can only be acceptable and palatable to people. Sort of like a politician, when you hear them talk, you don't actually connect with them. They're being a persona, they're being fake. We don't actually see that and want to spend time with somebody that's acting like a politician. But we can tolerate them. They don't rock the boat. We're not going to be necessarily offended by somebody who's just kind of playing the middle ground and avoiding offending anybody. But we're not going to be inspired by them. We're not actually going to deeply respect them. Humans understand at a very intuitive level if somebody does believe in themselves, if somebody is connected with their truer self, if somebody is connected with their deeper self. And it's context dependent, blah, blah, blah. We can be good or bad on this dimension in various contexts in our life, at various times in our life. We'll ebb and flow. We're never going to just lock this in and be perfect. But it is sort of ironic that by trying to manipulate the perceptions of others, by focusing on that as the primary goal, we do undermine ourselves. And by not being afraid to offend some, we will form deeper connections with others. And there's a filtering mechanism to it, where if I'm trying so hard to not alienate people who I really don't feel a values alignment with, then I'm not going to find the people who I really do feel values alignment with. There's some ways that we signal and connect with those that we truly do find an alignment with if we are being authentic, as opposed to trying not to offend or trying to be super gentle and sensitive and touchy about things. And so all these things point to a middle way and a balance that's challenging to find. And those of us in positions where we need to lead others, or those of us in positions where they do genuinely, due to the mission they're trying to accomplish, require others to get behind them and like them, or people who have various relationships and social things that they're trying to accomplish that are perfectly valid things to want and to be right to want for themselves and for those around them. There is a special challenge here because we have to take these effects into account. Causes have effects, and it is important to see what results will come from certain actions. And so there's a lot of intentionality that's needed, and we do have to have awareness. We have to see clearly what has what effect and focus on ending up with a good result. And so these things can begin the voice that chirps within our brain about, oh, if they don't like you, you're not going to be a good leader. Oh, if they don't like you, you're not going to have friends or have a support network that you need when this or this, that happens. Oh, if you offend this person, then they're actually going to try to undermine you when you're trying to accomplish this goal or that goal. And so this middle way is kind of tempting. We're going to be pulled in the direction of self-consciousness, of hyper-fixation on the opinions of others by so many stimuli, including some of our missions. And it takes some courage to see that, okay, yes, I might offend this person by telling this truth, but I need to tell this truth regardless, even if it will cause some short-term harm, even if it will cause a painful situation for me to navigate through in the present because this person needs confronted about this, for example. And it's very tempting for us to take the easy way out and just try to smooth things over instead of standing up to somebody who needs stood up to, instead of calling something out in truth that needs called out. And so this is a complex and it must be navigated, in my view, in an intuitive way rather than trying to think all the way through it and plan all the way through it and logic all the way through it. This can be real traps on this path. And in the end, if we can learn to find the middle way and use this as a tool, of course, this can enable us to achieve many, many, many ends that we cannot achieve as one solitary lone wolf individual. We are collaborative creatures. This has huge traps, huge temptations, but also huge potential if we can learn to ride this wave with wisdom, with courage, with truth, and with awareness. And so just a couple of quotes to mention at the end of this little diatribe, also from the Tao Te King. One is, because he believes in himself, he doesn't try to convince others. And the other is, knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength, mastering yourself is true power. And these allude a little bit to our awareness, to our understanding of our deeper values. Who are we really? Not what is the narrative about us, not what do other people think about us, but directly experiencing our true nature, directly connecting with our consciousness, our awareness, our soul, something that's not just an ego, not just a name, not just a story and identity and the momentum of the good or bad events in our lives or the opinions of others, but something that is constant and true and not so wrapped up in these little monkey mind games, but rather something deep, constant, that is within us, that is connected and naturally strong, naturally courageous, naturally aware. And if we can connect with that, in my view, that is the way to finding the middle way. That is the deep power that we all possess that can enable us to overcome the conditioning of our society and of our culture on this front. That is the capacity that is within us to transcend these ever-present temptations, these ever-present tuggings of emotions and of language upon our attention, and enable us to be our truest self and our most confident self and our most aware self and our most courageous self in a way that will hopefully allow us to find a middle way, not be battered around, but still fully connect and fully love others and enable us to collaborate with them toward a higher purpose, however we define it. And so that's some of my thoughts around this. What do you think?
There's also a beautiful thing about not only towards others, love others, and care about others, but also care about yourself and really love yourself. And I believe the people who really have this practice of loving kindness towards themselves and towards others experience loneliness in a much lesser degree. Like uh, I believe the Dalai Lama once got asked, do you ever feel lonely? And he said instantly no, because how could I feel lonely if I wish others to be well, to be happy? And I have this kindness towards myself and this kindness towards others, because this overrules the feeling of loneliness. It's like a candle in the dark which you shine. You cannot feel both at the same time. And if you shine this light onto yourself and this caring about others and this caring about yourself, you are totally independent of the approval of others. You're totally free. Your happiness is never again being held hostage. So this is also a good practice to take into account. There are tons of loving kindness meditations around that. Just try one out and search one out in the internet. This is also a great tool to use. And as you said, being aware of this mechanism of if you crave the approval of others, then you are in the prison of it. You can use it as a tool. Then this is something you use, so you won't get used by it. And this is a big thing, because if you know your value, if you know who you are, then you can speak your own truth. And even if it's sometimes painful to speak your truth against a consensus, against what society tells you, you speak your own truth and be true to yourself and to your core and act upon the hunches you have and your intuitions, which regard to your own knowledge about yourself, then you're more powerful being you than you would be just as a cog in the big machine. So if you know your value, then no treatment of others will convince you otherwise. If you take, I love this analogy between you are like a $10 bill or like a $500 bill. If you have it like this, anybody wants it. But if you like fold it up, still anybody wants it. If you trample on it, if you put your feet on it, if you put dirt on it, still everybody wants it, because you still can clean it and it's still inherently valuable as the bill that it is. And the same is with yourself. If you know who you are and how valuable you are, then no treatment, no approval or disapproval of others will change the way you think about yourself, because you are independent of everybody's opinion, because you know the relationship between approval and imprisonment. So it's the same thing with delegate, don't abdicate. There's this middle way. Care but don't despair. Like there's no directive to say, oh, do not have to care about other people's opinion. Yeah, sure, you can care about them, but you are not depending on their approval. You still care. You are still a kind human being which cares about yourself and about others, but you will not imprison yourself to the opinion of others. So this is also referring to the middle way, knowing yourself, knowing your own value, speaking your own truth, and be independent of the opinions and actions of others, because you know your value, because you are valuable for yourself. And that's why also putting art out, during the process of making art, you should only do art which you truly find beautiful, which you do for yourself. And in that, your characteristics can speak themselves into the world. And then people will like it or people will not like it. And you still will continue doing your art. You still will continue being you and doing you. That's also why we do these podcasts. I just fell in love with the process, doing these conversations with you. And even if my mom is our biggest fan, so hi mom. Nobody else will watch it. I still love the process. I still will continue doing this with you, and have deep appreciation towards you taking the time out and meeting here. And thanks for everything, man.
Likewise, my friend. It is completely mutual. Our moms are our best fan club for sure. And it is. And when we're able to pursue something for its own sake, for the intrinsic value of the activity to us, for the ways that it nourishes and grows our own awareness of certain things and our own truth to our values and consistency with what we truly care about. It doesn't have to be for recognition. It doesn't have to be for extrinsic reward. It doesn't have to be for any of these other things. And by focusing on the extrinsic, how many listeners we have, what do people comment, how do they like it, do they not like it, what's their opinion, blah, 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 we cheapen it. And we take the intrinsic value out of it if we replace it with wanting to keep score. And so, yeah, with all these thoughts, these are stuff that I am very much a work in progress on. And this week, even I fell into various forms of rumination about this, and I can see that when I'm on the right balance on these things, I am a much stronger, much clearer, much more effective, much better, and a more charismatic, ironically, version of myself than when I get caught up in wanting, not wanting, attachment, resistance of various social interactions. We can't control the opinions of others. We can control our own actions. We can control our own thoughts. And we have immense power if we don't give it away, if we don't relinquish it, and if we maintain it in awareness and truth and in humility. So that's my aspiration for this week. Long way to go. This is a dance that we will continue to dance for the rest of our lives, I'm sure. And I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and reflections on this, man. This is valuable reflection to me and timely, of course. So thank you very much.
So may we be kind towards ourselves and towards others, and may we not crave the approval and make us dependent on the reaction of other people. May we recognize our inner value and speak our truth. Appreciate you, man.
100%. Yeah, thank you.
See you
You
next
as well.
time.
Have a great week. Yep, see you next
Bye.
time.